Hi, folks. This is Jackie Sawicki with the Texas and the National Coalitions Against Crypto Mining. We are here today with John Weber. John Weber is in Corpus Christi, and he's on the board of the Coastal Bend Sierra Club, and he's involved in many other environmental groups down on the coast. John, thank you so much, and welcome for being here today.
Sure, thank you for having me. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah. So, what got you involved in environmental groups? How long have you lived on the down there in Corpus Christi? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, I used to live down here in like 2001, and I returned in 2016. Corpus Christi used to be called the Sparkling City by the Sea, and it's changed a lot since the time I was gone. And now we're pretty much inundated with a lot of crude oil exports, natural gas exports, and there's a lot of talk about doing carbon capture and storage, as well as green hydrogen, green ammonia, bunch more, chemical and plastic plants coming to our area, as well as cryptocurrencies.
Yeah, y'all are just getting 1-2 punch down there. What I know that you're part of the Sierra Club in the Coastal Bend. Can you also tell us some of the other organizations you work with? You're quite active down there.
Yeah, so work with CAPE, the Coastal Alliance to Protect the Environment, as well as TCE, the Texas Commission on Environment, I think their name is. I forgot what the C stands for. CHISPA, Texas,
Mhm.
and a number of other ones. But none specific to cryptocurrency because we only have one mine being built now.
Gotcha. You are a regular attendant of the Texas Coalition monthly meeting, so we appreciate you showing up and representing the Gulf down there. Do you mind me asking what your background is? Do you work in environmental organizations, or this is just a passion? What got you involved? Is it because of all of the industry that you've witnessed down there?
Yeah, I think that's what kind of got me involved with the new industry coming to this section of town. Um, so it's just a passion of mine, and like cryptocurrency, I got involved because I just started doing massive research on it for investment reasons. I was like, what is there to this investment? And just kind of went, probably spent 1,000 hours researching cryptocurrencies as a potential investment.
And your assessment after all that research?
Well, pretty much it's a total scam. And so, yeah, I mean, they make it sound complicated and cool, and it's like the latest, greatest thing, and it's the future of money. And but basically, it's kind of a greater fool's game, or some people call it a Ponzi scheme, or a game of musical chairs, and eventually the music will stop.
Yep, we wholeheartedly agree with you. We have also had experts on the show that are in agreement. So it is pretty shocking how the Texas government has just gone all in on this thing without actually getting input from the citizens of Texas and asking if we want to subsidize, this huge boondoggle. So it is interesting. I feel like a lot of us critics are more informed on the financial and ecological impacts of this thing, more so than the people that are actually invested in it. Because I mean, if you do your due diligence, why would on earth would you want to get involved with this stuff? Um, so with the Bitcoin mining thing, what company is down there? How long have they been there? Are they operating right now? Can you tell us a little bit about the Bitcoin mine that's down there on the Corpus Christi?
Sure. Bootstrap Energy LLC is the Bitcoin miner. And they were, I think it was about 2 years ago, they got the city council to give them an IDA, which is short for industrial, um, industrial district agreement, which means that they de-annex the property, and then they pay what's called a pilot, a payment in lieu of taxes,
Mhm.
instead of paying property taxes or other taxes. So basically, they take this chunk of land and put it outside the city property, and they give them a tax break. And at the time that they got the city council to do this, it was about a $70 million tax break over 10 years. And the biggest part of that is by putting it outside the city limits, then they don't have to pay any franchise fee or sales tax on the electricity that they use.
Oh, wow.
Which is huge because it was originally proposed as a 600 megawatt mining facility, and then last year, because of the crash of crypto, they started right away on the project, and then they just abandoned it. That would be almost 2 years ago, and it just kind of sat vacant.
Hmm.
And then the price of crypto went back up, and they started paying attention. Then they got the city to amend their industrial district agreement and let them do half of the facility as battery storage and half as crypto mining. So they're going to do 300 megawatts of crypto mining, 300 of battery storage. And they kind of conned the city council into to approving that agreement, even though they hadn't made good on their original agreement. So they set up 4 containers before the city council voted on this agreement and said that, yeah, we're mining crypto here. Everything's great. They did a TV, had them out there to
Hmm.
photo the miners and everything. And since then, those 4 containers are just totally abandoned. They're not mining anything in there. There's no sound, noise, fans running. But they are building buildings to supposedly house the cryptocurrency miner.
Yeah, thank you so much for providing those photographs. We'll definitely include them in the uh, podcast. And you use the word con. I think that's a really great description of how these folks come into local municipalities and they make these incredibly wild claims about economic benefit and jobs, and they just do not come through. And there's also so much secrecy and misinformation. So we are currently working to stymie or stop the world's largest Bitcoin mine from being built here in Navarro County. And through records requests, through looking back over 2 years of this process, we are absolutely convinced that Riot Platforms had a systematic disinformation campaign, is still not being transparent and honest. And it is interesting with these pilot tax breaks that they are supposed to hit certain metrics. So I'm curious, do you know if they've created jobs, if they've created economic benefit down there?
Well, that's a great question because so they did have to meet some metrics and have the plant going by a certain date, and they didn't meet that.
Mhm.
And when that's why they wanted to do this amended industrial district agreement. And they were able to get the city council, or at least most of the council, to go along with it. Um, but the council really should have just re-annexed the property because they didn't, meet the terms of the original agreement. Um, so yeah, I mean, that's a problem with our local city council here. They're either ignorant about it or they have a conflict of interest. I
Wow.
found out that one council member was running for a different office this spring in the primaries, and he received a $5,000 contribution from one of the Bootstrap developers, and he's received another 5,000 from the other Bootstrap developer. So he received $10,000 in donations for his campaign
Wow.
from the two main cryptocurrency founders of Bootstrap LLC. So yeah, they're spending a lot of money lobbying
Yeah.
the local government to get their tax breaks, and yeah, huge amount of tax breaks. Um, and then, that's not even considering, what it's going to do to electricity rates for everybody
Mhm.
else, or any environmental impact from the production of that electricity.
Yeah, speaking of environmental impact, I know that a lot of times these operations precisely choose their locations because they don't want to be regulated. They don't want oversight. So were any impact studies done, environmental, economic impact studies done for this operation down there?
No studies were done. They originally had a claim of providing 35 jobs per each phase. So 35 jobs for the 300 megawatts, and then they're going to do the other 300 megawatts. So it's supposed to be 70 jobs total. But since they changed it to 300 megawatts of crypto and then 300 of battery storage, they said that the battery storage, they wouldn't have to employ anybody. So
Wow.
then it'll just be 35 jobs for 600 megawatt hours, or 600 megawatts of demand. So not a lot of jobs. Probably McDonald's would employ more people than this, and use a lot less electricity.
Wow, that is incredible. Our second guest, Yvonne Taylor, who's with the Cynical Lake Guardian, the founder of the National Coalition Against Crypto Mining, she said the exact same thing. The Bitcoin mine up in New York employs less people than the McDonald's does. So this is something I really wish our local elected officials and the folks in the press, instead of just copying and pasting their press releases, do a little due diligence, look into the question, are the claims they make actual factual reality? And Tech Transparency Project did a really great report about the promises that they failed to keep regarding jobs and economic benefit. We know for a fact that when these facilities go online in such massive quantities, they cost the local businesses, local residents, and the cost in those increased electricity bills far outweighs any supposed economic and tax benefit. And when they're wriggling out of their tax responsibilities, it's even a slap in the face for them to claim that they're creating revenue when they're doing everything they can to get out of contributing to the local coffers.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And these, people aren't local. They're actually their headquarters. It looks like an apartment in Dallas. And it is probably just one or two people, that's the whole company. And they were just looking for, a tax break and an easy way to get in, and somehow they must have got some investor money involved. Um, so yeah, so none of the benefits will stay here in the local economy. They'll go to Dallas, I guess. So yeah.
Riots from Colorado.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I think Marathon's from Florida. I mean, it's true. When China kicked these guys out and Governor Greg Abbott said, come to Texas, boy, did they. And so all of these outside companies, even foreign owned companies, are, invading the state of Texas and just exploiting all of our resources and causing like massive harm to poor folks and seniors living on a fixed income, that kind of stuff. It's pretty
Yeah,
infuriating.
yeah, I agree. And luckily here, this one supposedly, at least at this point in time, doesn't need any water. I
Well,
know the ones you're dealing with use water cooling. So we'll see if water becomes an issue because right now we have no water. We've been in drought for like 700 days, and you can water your lawn every other week once on your recycle day, I believe. So we're in a severe drought still. Our main reservoirs have 25% or so of storage right now. So definitely hoping they don't need water to cool their machines, but I don't know how they would cool them in the summer because it gets very hot here and very humid, and I think it'll be real hard to cool just with air cooling.
yeah, even with the air cooling, there's a lot of times they use what a sort of swamp cooler. So it's like almost curtains that are perforated and like drip, almost like drip irrigation, and then the fans are blowing on that fabric that's saturated, and that cools the ambient temperature down. So even when they're using fans, a lot of times they're using water too. So you definitely got to keep an eye out for that. And that's one of, I say in the Bitcoin mining industry, water is like Fight Club. They don't talk about it. It is one of the big secrets in Bitcoin mining, how much water these guys are using. And every single Texan knows how sacred and important and scarce water is. We've had a really wet spring, but that doesn't mean that it can't change real fast. Our property was flooded a couple weeks ago, and now everything's starting to dry up and crack. So things can change really fast. And this is another one of those issues that just really bothers me about how poorly our local officials handle these kind of projects because they don't think long term. Like these folks are not thinking 5, 10, 15, 20 years out. They're thinking they're thinking about their next election.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. They're not thinking long term. They're not thinking generational. They're just trying to make a quick buck, I guess. And I think that like this, at least here, the city council people don't do a lot of actual research before they vote on different issues. They don't do their homework to find out, what the repercussions of different projects are. I wish they would do that, but currently it doesn't look like they're doing that.
Yeah, when they made the big surprise announcement that Riot was building the world's largest Bitcoin mine here, I asked all the folks who brought this, like, did you even go look at their facility in Milam County? They have North America's largest facility. Did you even go down there? Have you talked to any of the people that live in Milam County? And they hadn't even done that. They didn't do that until a month in after our group had just caused a total, stink about this project and them, doing it behind closed doors. That's another recurring theme. These companies call themselves data centers. They are not data centers. So they use all kinds of sneaky little ways to, get their foot in the door. And these companies, once you give them an inch, they're going to take the whole mile. So we are always cautioning folks, if you hear about a data center coming to your county, pay attention, attend meetings, look at the agenda, see if they're trying to get tax abatements. I mean, it's really incredible how I just did a records request when Ted Cruz announced that he is mining Bitcoin in Iran, Texas. I did a records request. There are 3 different Bitcoin mines in Pecos County, Cormant, Lancium, and Blockstream, and they all 3 have pilot agreements. They all paid big chunks of money to the county in exchange for, not paying taxes for 10 years or something. So must be nice.
Yeah, that's a typical, at least for our city. Actually presented on this yesterday at the city council. I was talking about industrial district agreements. In our city, the term for them is 10 years, and they normally pay about 66% of what they would pay in property taxes. And the other key is by being in an industrial district agreement, they don't have to do any permitting
Mm,
for their projects, and they don't have to, abide by, the typical um, city requirements,
yeah.
because they're like no longer part of the city. Um, that's really beneficial for any business wanting to do anything that, could create noise, for an example, like you guys are dealing with in your area.
Yeah, that's Hood County. But yeah, it's very depressing how little protections there are for people and planet here in Texas and like outside city limits. They're just like, well, we can't do anything about it. And so it's pretty, I mean, and that's another reason why folks need to be extra vigilant. Um, because once they're there, it's real hard to get rid of these guys. Even when they're causing like physical harm to the community, uh like Marathon Digital in Hood County is going to trial next month for all of the tickets and citations they've gotten for disturbing the peace, disorderly conduct. I mean, they have an army of lawyers. They're taking it to a jury trial because they think they can get away with this.
Yeah, it hasn't gotten that far here yet, but they haven't really started up yet. So, I mean, we'll see, what the noise is and everything like that here, and see what the price of Bitcoin does. I mean, the sooner it goes to zero, the better for everybody. But there's no guarantee. What the Bernie Madoff went on for like what 28 years or something. So this could go on for decades before it all falls apart.
Yeah, and Bernie Madoff's scheme was only discovered because of the housing crash. Like who knows how long it could have kept going. Um, it is very interesting. You know, when I first got into this 2 years ago, I'm like, and then Riot announced, and immediately after they announced they were building here, there was the Terra Luna crash, and then the big one in November, the FTX crash. So I thought for sure, oh, this is they're done. They can't possibly keep going. But as we've been talking about, the reason that a lot of these guys like Marathon and Riot have been able to continue is um, because they get these tax breaks, because they're part of ERCOT's ancillary services. Do you know if Bootstrap participates in demand response or reserve response? I'm guessing with those batteries, they have plans on it.
Yeah, when at the last time they spoke at the council, some of the council, we have two decent council members out of 9 total. And they ask about, what they're going to do for demand response and things like that. And yes, it sounds like they are going to participate in the ERCOT demand response program and get paid for not mining, which we're all paying for, of course.
Right.
And they say, well, yeah, we're actually going to help the grid, because we'll stop it when they don't need it, and then we'll provide a load when they need a load. And they're pretty good at, you know, talking to uninformed people and getting them to see their direction. But I think a good analogy is if somebody's got their hands around your throat and they're choking you, and then you tell them to let off, and they let off for a little bit, then they're a good person, right?
Right. And then they say, look, I'm helping you breathe. Please pay me.
Exactly. And then once you catch your breath, then they start choking you again. And,
Yeah,
um,
there's a pretty big hearing on the Texas grid June 12th, I believe. And it was really interesting because I found out that only a very small percentage of Bitcoin miners are actually on ERCOT's ancillary services programs. So the ones that are getting paid to shut down, number one, they don't do so consistently. It really depends on where Bitcoin is at any given minute. That should terrify Texans. if Bitcoin is going gangbusters and the grid is getting tight and ERCOT says, hey, would you pretty please shut down? I'll pay you. And they make the assessment. I don't know. Like, I'd lose money if I stopped right now. And they kept going. They could crash the grid. So, and we have energy experts who agree with us in this, and we are absolutely convinced that ever since they were kicked out of China and we are now, Texas is #1 in crypto mining, it has made the grid less stable, less safe. So that financial aspect of them actually shutting down. So not all of them are even, not even a majority are participating in ancillary services. So they have to just make the assessment when electricity gets too expensive for them, they shut down. It's not because they're doing it to save the grid. It's totally like a financial decision.
Exactly. And the other thing that's important to note is with all this coming load of the miners and AI in the future, is that now the Texas is planning on building a lot more gas power
Yeah.
plants, and they're subsidizing the companies to build them because of the election last year,
Yeah.
to giving them money to subsidize these gas. So just at a time where we should be shutting down our coal and gas and ramping our renewables, we're continuing to add gas power plants, and that's just going to make things hotter and the weather crazier. And we already have hot enough, crazy enough weather as it is.
Yeah. Yeah, it is very, thank you so much for bringing that up, because in Hood County, the Marathon Digital, it's a 300 megawatt facility. It is what's called behind the meter. So it's directly connected to a steam powered gas plant called Wolf Hollow Phase 2. Right this moment, Marathon is pulling a full quarter of the power produced that by that power plant goes directly to Bitcoin mining. It's not going to locals. It's not, lessening people's bills. It is going to guess and throw away numbers. And they are talking about building now a phase 3. They are planning on expanding and creating a whole nother power plant. And we think that it has to do with the Bitcoin mine. And recently we found out, and I'm going to have Cheryl Shadden on the show, but there is a veteran out there, a retired colonel, very senior gentleman, whose water is contaminated with methane. He has to drive to a neighbor's to get water. And it has everything to do with these power plants. Texas, it's kind of crazy. One of the things that made Texas such a powerhouse, our fossil fuel industry, is going to end up costing us trillions in the long run, because climate change is real.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And so, right now we should be closing these gas and coal
Correct.
plants, but we're building more just to, like you said, guess numbers. And then when they're done guessing, they just throw it all away. And the only thing you get when you're done guessing is a bunch of heat and a bunch of, carbon in the atmosphere, especially for the natural gas plants and the coal-fired power plants. And those you can directly say are 100% powered by fossil fuels.
Yeah. Yep. Correct. And the federal government, the energy department did a report on Bitcoin mining, and they studied about, I think, 10 Bitcoin mines that were directly connected to power plants, so behind the meter. I guess a lot of folks don't know this, but power plants are not supposed to be running at 100% all the time. They ramp up and down. Having them running at 100% all the time is dangerous because you miss maintenance. Bad things can happen. So generally, these power plants are, anywhere it ranges wide, it widely ranges, but they're not usually running at 100%. This report by the federal government showed that power plants that have Bitcoin mines attached directly to them dramatically increase their constant power production, which also means they're dramatically increasing their dirty pollution and air pollution.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Yeah, there, the air pollution in that local area would go up around where they're doing that behind the meter kind of generation for these Bitcoin mining operations or cryptocurrency mining. I guess it's mostly Bitcoin mining now. Correct me
Yeah.
if I'm wrong, because the Ethereum and some of the other ones have gone to proof of stake, which is much more energy efficient, but Bitcoin is the holdout staying with proof of waste.
Yep, that's exactly right. I do educating new folks about Bitcoin mining, what they call the proof of work algorithm is all of these redundant computers. Like, so generally a computer, an ASIC, these are application specific integrated circuits. They're not even computers. These things cannot do anything else but guess and throw away numbers. So they, Ethereum is the second largest crypto behind Bitcoin. And I think it was September 2022, I want to say, they switched from proof of work, proof of waste, to proof of stake and lowered their energy consumption by 99.9%. So that is one of the most infuriating things about all of this is the waste, the e-pollution, the water consumption, the destabilizing the grid and driving up everyone's energy bills. It's completely unnecessary. It is a choice that they're making to continue wasting a mid-sized country's worth of energy and water when they could go to proof of stake. And there are a lot of very, very deep financial reasons why Bitcoin miners will never, ever do that. Ask BlackRock. Some of the biggest investors in Bitcoin are also invested in Bitcoin mining. So there's a lot of very, very powerful moneyed interests behind this incredibly wasteful, destructive industry.
Yeah, you bring up a good point about having the machines, they're only made for one specific purpose. And like you said, guessing numbers. Like when Bootstrap was talking to our city council to try to get them to amend their IDA and let them keep going with their projects, one of the council people asked, well, what if something happens with Bitcoin? What can you do now? And the developer said, well, we can just have the machines do AI or do some other kind of data processing. So it doesn't matter. We'll just, use them for something else. But obviously, he wasn't telling the truth. You can just use them for one thing. They ask about e-waste, one of the council members, and he said, well, there's really no e-waste because when we're done with them, then we hand them off and somebody else uses them for something else, and then they get recycled. But all the studies I've read that says, a Bitcoin machine normally lasts about 18 months
Yep.
and then it becomes e-waste. And normally, I think it's like 97% of the machines never even mine one Bitcoin in their
Correct.
life.
That is one of the most mind-blowing stats. So millions and millions and millions of computers all around the world guessing and throwing away numbers using a mid-sized country's worth of energy. The vast, overwhelming majority of those machines will never mine a single Bitcoin. So all that power, all that water, all those computers, all those precious metals and minerals that are needed in, batteries and your cell phones, all this stuff, it is completely wasted. That's why we call this proof of waste. There is no work involved. It is all about consumption. And, in the era of climate collapse and the sixth mass extinction, Bitcoin mining literally embodies everything that we should not be doing.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, there's all that waste, and then there's a huge amount of waste heat going directly in the atmosphere,
Yeah.
heating up the planet. I mean, not including the greenhouse gases that were spewed to make all the machines. or to make the electricity to power all the machines.
Yeah, that's a really interesting aspect of Alex DeVries' water study. He's also going to be a guest on the show. He did a study about Bitcoin and water, and I hadn't even thought about it this way, but there is the direct and the indirect water usage. Just like there's the direct energy consumption and indirect energy consumption. So it takes a lot of water to mine the materials, refine the fuel, transport this kind of stuff. I mean, there is an incredible amount of water and finite resources on the back end that people don't even see. And then there's like the direct water, and the direct water use is just a tip of the iceberg of how much water is needed to extract, refine, transport all that energy that mid-sized country's worth of energy they're using.
Yeah, that's a very good point, especially here in Texas, because we frack for natural gas, which is methane, and it takes a tremendous amount of water for fracking, and then the water can't really be used again because it has all these confidential materials in there, so we don't know what is exactly in the water. Yeah, you just making water unpotable.
Yeah, and then you gotta, build a desalination plant so that we can make fresh water.
Yeah, we're working on fighting 5 proposed desalination plants in the Bay of Corpus Christi right now. Since we have no water, they want to do desalination. So there are 5 proposed desalination plants, and Texas Park and Wildlife has suggested locations for the intake and outfall of seawater for desalination plants, and they're all offshore. They don't have any in the bay system. The Hart Research Institute recommends no discharge of wastewater from a desalination plant in the bay system. But all 5 of these have their discharge into the bay system. And it's very likely that they're going to cause dead zones in the bay. And Corpus Christi Bay is a bay of national significance. We have 234 species of fish in it. And we could lose all of that because of desalination projects. So places will, so industry will have more water basically. None of the water is for the people, it's all for industry, but the people will have to pay to build the plants.
Sure, right, of course.
Yeah.
That is a
Yeah.
common theme in all of these big business dealings. The Texas government is like all too willing to give these guys, tax breaks, like the riot platforms, is sales tax exempt under the guise of being a data center from the Texas comptroller. So we're giving tax abatements, tax breaks, and it's the Texas energy consumer, Texas taxpayers that are footing the bill. I mean, it's really funny when they say, oh, Texas doesn't have income tax, but we're paying for it in our property taxes. And I don't know about you, but our roads are terrible out here. Don't get me started.
Our roads are awful here. I
Yeah.
mean, you can barely drive on them without needing to replace the lower control arm on your car
Yeah.
or having a blowout.
We've gone through three sets of tires in 6 years of being here. So, and struts and all that stuff. How did you find out about the Texas or the national coalitions? How'd you hear about us?
I think it was when I was on Twitter a while ago, like must have been a year or two ago, a year and a half ago, is how I found out about you all. And since then, I don't even do Twitter anymore. It was just a kind of a time suck, but I did find some good people, and I did find out about Alex on Twitter as well, and like Stephen Deal
Yes.
and a lot of other people trying to educate people about cryptocurrencies. So so I did learn a lot from being on Twitter, and it I don't think Twitter's a real good place to actually learn stuff, but it's a good place to find out where to do your research.
Totally.
Um, so that it worked out really well for me. And then, read a whole bunch of different books about cryptocurrency. Stephen Deal wrote a good one. And then uh,
Popping the crypto bubble.
that is an excellent book.
Yeah.
Still one of my favorite books is Driverless Finance by Hillary Allen.
Oh,
If you haven't read that, it is an excellent book. It starts out as if the crypto bubble already burst and what the government's doing to try to, save everybody's retirement money from being gone.
yeah. So that is one of the biggest fears of the national coalition is that this industry, this total scam, gets its tentacles into the traditional finance. We already saw, I think, a Canadian pension got involved in FTX and they lost a lot of money. There is so much boom and bust and volatility and risk in crypto. Again, I think it's insane that our elected officials like Ted Cruz, who's now mining Bitcoin, would be behind this thing that is just so fraudulent and risky. It's pretty depressing.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, if it gets too integrated with traditional finance and banking, it could take everything down. That's probably my worst fear, is that, if they get into the market, when they crash, it could take real big companies down, and it could take a lot of people could lose all their retirement savings. So that is my biggest concern. The second biggest concern is, the electrical load, and more coal and gas plants will be coming online to provide the electricity needed for the proof of waste miners.
What would you say to people that say it's private business, they can do what they want, they bought their property, they're following rules and regulations? Who are you to decide who gets electricity and who gets water? This is something I hear constantly.
Well, I guess, well, one thing, I just think it should be banned. I think it should be illegal to run
Totally.
a Ponzi scheme or to run a greater fool's game. So I don't think it should be legal, but I guess if it is legal, then at least at a minimum, I would say to them that they shouldn't receive any industrial district agreements. They should pay taxes like everybody else. They should pay electricity by everybody else. They
Mm.
should not get paid to not use electricity like everybody else. So they should play the same rules as everybody else. Then I just don't think we would see them here.
That's a great point. Yeah. Um, in your advocacy on the coast, have you had any wins?
Well, I think more and more people are are waking up to this. I do presentations around town at local organizations. I have one I'm actually doing in August for a group called WOW, and so I just kind of tell them, what's going on and try to educate them. A lot of the people just don't know.
Yes.
Um, I do need to reach more of the younger people. I haven't been able to do that yet because it seems like the younger people are the ones that, are doing a lot of the, are getting scammed by the Bitcoins more than other people. The older people, they don't even think about it because they'd never invest in it.
Right.
Um,
It's a
but the
financial
young
literacy thing.
but the younger people are doing it. And even like I think it was like about a year ago, I noticed a machine in the local HEB,
Yeah.
to put your money in to buy Bitcoin. And I was like, that's just terrible. The HEBs are helping to promote, poor people getting scammed by these Bitcoin scams.
Mhm.
But yeah, I wish there was a better way to, for me to reach the younger uninformed investors about the risks of investing, and also the economic or the environmental impact of those, of the proof of waste mining.
Yeah, as I said earlier, a lot of these guys, because it's overwhelmingly men and young men in crypto, they don't even know how the sausage is made. When you tell folks this is it's not even when the media reprints these talking points, like Bitcoin mining is doing complex mathematical equations. They're not hackers. It is literally an algorithm that is throwing trillions of numbers at the wall per second, hoping to hit a lottery. So it's also an unsanctioned lottery, which is illegal in Texas, which is another reason why I don't understand why our elected leaders have gone in on this. But when you tell folks, I say education is our most powerful tool, because most compassionate, normal people, when you tell them it's just like this, it's a huge ecological thing. It wastes our water. Everybody knows how precious water is in Texas. And then on top of it, it's like torturing local communities with noise pollution. Most people are incensed. And it is because they don't know about it. That's how this industry has been able to proliferate to the extent that it does, because they misinform and manipulate what it is that they're actually doing. If they said we're using, Austin, in Texas alone, Bitcoin miners are using the equivalent power of the city of Austin to guess and throw away numbers in hopes that just a few tiny little handful of Texans get rich quick. People are disgusted, appalled, horrified, and that's all it takes. We just have to educate people. That's why we're doing this podcast. And so if there's a college, I'm sure if there's a college in Corpus Christi, maybe you can contact them and do a presentation there.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I know we have a couple of colleges. One is kind of like a community college, and then we have a Texas A&M college here as well. But yeah, maybe I could reach out to, one of the groups on campus and talk to them about it, answer any questions they might have. But it does seem like you said it's a overwhelmingly young males that are getting kind of scammed in this whole thing, because they all want to drive around in Lamborghinis, I guess.
And that's a whole nother conversation about consumption and expectations of what success means, but this industry is predatory in so many different fashions. And one of the ways they prey on people is this, lust for status and financial security, that they really do hook people. They get people in with these incredible promises of wealth and another thing that drives me nuts about the Bitcoin miners and the Bitcoin crew is when you make money on a shit coin. So I'm not cussing, this is what they call them. So anything not Bitcoin is a shit coin. And you make money on one of these things, it's not life-changing money, wife-changing money. There's also a lot of misogyny in this.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so when they all want to hit it big, they want their Lamborghini and they want to upgrade their wife. And a lot of folks will say, I lost all my money, I didn't tell my wife, or I invested my children's college funds and I didn't tell my spouse. Like, there is so much of that. It is so pervasive. And there's also, one of the really, really big aspects that almost nobody talks about is the gambling addiction aspect of this as well. So a lot of these folks are victims themselves, but crypto turns, I think it's David Gerard who says that crypto turns victims into victimizers, because with that greater full scheme, you have to, or like the MLM pyramid type of thing, you have to keep getting others in it or you can't cash out.
Exactly. Yeah, the greater fool game. I mean, you buy it hoping you can find a greater fool to sell it to for a higher price so you make money. And then there's also, tax evasion is rampant with cryptocurrencies because according to the IRS in the United States, that cryptocurrencies are considered a property. So every time you exchange your property for something else, that is a taxable transaction.
Yeah.
So let's say you bought one Bitcoin for $10, and then you exchange it for a pizza or whatever for like $5. Well, when you exchange it for a pizza, then you have to figure out your cost basis of the $10, and then the cost basis for the $5 you exchange for the pizza at that time, and then you'll either have a capital gain or a loss on that. Most people don't use it as a crypto or as a currency because it works really poorly as a currency. But even as an investment, so if you buy it multiple times, you need to figure out your cost basis each time. And if you sell it at different times, you need to find your cost basis. And so every event is a taxable event.
Yeah.
That's why it can never work as a currency, at least in the United States, because every time you would spend your Bitcoin, you would have to pay taxes or you would have a capital loss, one of the two, be a accounting nightmare.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's also like a running joke in the crypto sphere that what Bitcoin? I don't have any Bitcoin. I lost it in a boating accident. So when you're talking about tax evasion, we're talking about moving vast sums of money secretly or pseudo anonymously in hopes of evading taxes. I always mention that behind Texas, behind America, the second largest Bitcoin mining area is Russia, and they are using crypto and Bitcoin mining to circumvent sanctions placed upon them for invading Ukraine. So there are so many, we call negative externalities of this industry that it is truly incomprehensible why supposed American representatives would want anything to do with this.
Yeah, I think it was just in the last week, like the software program for car dealerships got hacked in the US, and I think it affected like 15,000 car dealerships. And it was a ransomware, so they want some kind of cryptocurrencies to so these people can start operating their systems again. And I think they're based out of Eastern Europe is where they tracked them down to. So ransomware and malware, a lot of that is all related to cryptocurrencies because that's how they want to get paid.
Absolutely. Thank you again for bringing that up. So our first guest was Peter Howson, who wrote Let Them Eat Crypto. And he talked about that as well. Bitcoin and crypto have scaled up ransomware to the point that it never could have gotten this far. They are attacking hospitals, vital infrastructure. Dallas County's computers were hacked and brought the county court to an absolute standstill. And none of that would be possible if it were not for Bitcoin and the other cryptos, the privacy cryptos like the mixers. This industry, there's just so many avenues of ill-gotten gains and crime and fraud and scams and grifts. It is really, really, there's no bottom to the depths and darkness in this industry.
Yeah, I can't think of one good use case for cryptocurrencies. Yeah, I mean, it's just gambling and should be illegal in my mind. And at a minimum, we should follow China's example and ban cryptocurrency mining in our country as well. I think they made a good decision.
Yeah, sadly, it's a case of whack-a-mole. I mean, Alex DeVries talks about when they were kicked out of China, they were using mostly hydroelectric. And so when they left China, the Bitcoin algorithm, the whole blockchain got a lot dirtier when they went to places like Texas and Virginia and Pennsylvania, where there's all the fracked gas. So it was kind of the monkey's paw kind of thing, like careful what you wish for, because they get kicked out of one place, they're just going to go to the next place they can exploit, which was like Kosovo and Kazakhstan. And they came here, and it's gotten dirtier. And they're influencing politics. Oh my gosh, the amount of money. And just today we found out 2 crypto-backed politicians won their primaries, which is really concerning. This industry is spending as much money this election cycle as the pharmaceutical industry is. They are just trying to entrench themselves into the American political system. And it's like I said, you give them an inch, they're going to take a mile. And they're really trying to become permanent fixtures, and they're parasites.
So what do you think besides education would be other solutions to try to limit their growth or to see them go away?
So Riot Platforms was essentially guaranteed that they would get these property tax abatements here in Navarro County. And our group did a big call to action. We rallied folks in the local community, did an outpouring of emails and calls, and even showed up to the courthouse and had nice little one-on-one visits with their county commissioners. And we got that property tax abatement tabled for the moment. So Riot Platforms is now essentially extorting folks, saying, look, if we don't get those tax abatements that we were guaranteed by the economic development director, John Boswell, we're not going to keep expanding. We're not going to keep throwing money around the local community. We're not going to keep hiring. So they are really, really, really desperate for these abatements. And I think by us stopping them, at least temporarily, hopefully we can do it permanently, they are really sweating. So because again, these companies don't make a profit. It's a very, very unprofitable business. They are absolutely dependent upon subsidies, handouts, welfare, tax breaks from folks like you and I to sustain their business. So if, again, man, y'all hear about a data center come into your town, get involved, talk to your county commissioners and tell them that you don't want them getting tax breaks. I mean, this is why Texans are paying so much for energy and for our property tax bills, is because we're letting businesses get away scot-free.
Yeah, and you brought up a good point before too about how the Bitcoin mining operations are classified as data centers.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if there's a way somehow we could get them not classified as data centers anymore.
Actually, it's really interesting that you said that, because this has been one of my big pet peeves for a long time. Before AI just blew up like it hasn't recently, the Bitcoin algorithm used 7 times more energy than Google does. Google's data centers. Google services like billions with a B, billions of people. Crypto maybe maybe a couple dozen million are gambling in Bitcoin. So there is a very sharp distinction, because unlike every other business in the entire world, which is working towards efficiency, the Bitcoin mining algorithm is purposely designed to consume as much energy as possible. They're making more and more efficient computers or ASICs, but they're still using more and more energy, because the more power you can use, the more numbers you can guess. And so during the Texas Senate Banking and Commerce Committee that happened on June 12th, we'll definitely link to that. The senators, I was like very heartened, because the senators kept saying, stop calling yourself data centers. You're not a data center. You're a Bitcoin mine. And they even asked the question, how do we differentiate? And it's very easy. Data centers, legitimate data centers, are not using ASICs computers. They're using real servers that can do multiple functions. So I think that's a very clear distinction that we can make. And I think that we can absolutely use that as a jumping off point for regulation.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea to just be specific what kind of computing hardware is going to be used, and then you could classify it as a Bitcoin mine or some other kind of data center that is actually useful to people.
Yep, yep. That would be nice. And until that June 12th hearing, I was pretty hopeless that Texas was going to get its act together on this. But I think they really did get some sticker shock finding out that in just 6 years, our peak demand is expected to almost double. And that has everything to do with Bitcoin mining and AI servers. So they're here. We're number one in Bitcoin mining. Last August, we had 11 calls for conservation. We had 8 emergency days on the grid. These guys are already destabilizing the grid, and we should be doing something about it, because I really am concerned with another crash in the summer when it's triple digits.
Sure, yeah, people will die where I live if they lose electricity in the summertime. I
Yeah.
mean, last year we had a couple of days heat index of over 120 degrees, and old people will die in their houses if they don't have electricity.
Yeah. Yeah,
With
it is not hyperbole when I say that this industry is putting 30 million Texas lives in danger.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, part of it, the reason it's so hot here is because they're contributing to it getting hotter,
Yeah.
and and that makes the grid need more electricity, and a lot of their electricity has got to be spent just in cooling their
Mhm.
machines, not even the machines themselves. But I mean, you would think a logical person would think that this would be like one of the worst places to set up a crypto mine because it's so hot.
Yeah.
But they think it's one of the best places because of the lack of regulation, the
Yep.
cheap electricity, getting paid for not mining, the not having to pay taxes, and all these other benefits they get.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. So, how would you grade your local government, your state government, and the federal government on their response to crypto mining?
Well, my local government, I would give them an F. My state government, I would give them an F minus.
I
And
would
the
say that too.
and the federal government, I'll give them a D plus.
Yeah,
So,
it feels like they're on the back foot, like the people they're just now figuring this out. But truly that hearing on June 12th, we're talking about it. And that's another we can capitalize on all of this publicity by saying, hey, there's more and more are coming. Like we have to put some kind of cap on. I'd love to see a ban too, but a lot of folks are, pro business, they don't want to shut businesses down, but it really should be a cost benefit analysis. And I just don't know that there are people sophisticated enough in these local municipalities to be able to think in those kind of long term. If you could talk to one person about Bitcoin mining, who would it be?
I would think I would want to talk to Molly White, the founder of Web3 is going just great.
Hey,
because
I
I,
might be able to get you hooked up with Molly. I don't know her personally, but we follow each other on Twitter.
yeah, because Molly seems like she's very intelligent and she knows the ins and outs of what's going on, and I follow her blog. Web3 is going just great. She kind of figures out where all the scams are, and I think she's actually like a computer scientist.
Mhm.
So she understands um, the space really well. So that's who I think I would want to talk to regarding cryptocurrencies.
That's awesome. She also started a newsletter called Citation Needed, and she has been a huge, huge resource tracking all of this crypto lobbying money going into these elections. So highly recommend. We'll definitely link Molly White's Web3 is going great, and Citation Needed. She's doing incredible investigative journalism, which is like one of these things that just drives me nuts. It's like the trained professional journalists are not doing what folks like you and I and Molly are doing, and it's really frustrating. I don't how has your local media been following these kind of developments?
Not good at all. I mean, at least not critical. They did a story like when they were trying to get their amended IDA and went out to the plant and showed how cool it was, and
Mhm.
how everything's working great, but and now it's all abandoned, the place that they
Right.
filmed in the past.
And there
But
hasn't been any follow up.
yeah, our local media is not very critical of pretty much anything. We have very few like independent media sources in our locality, and most of them, don't really come out with good investigative reporting.
Yeah.
Yeah, their ad revenue is getting paid by industry or government, and so they're not normally critical of industry or government.
Yeah, we found that to be pretty the same situation here. Why do you keep fighting?
Well, I mean, I have to do something, right? So, and now I'm kind of, I do a lot of Public Information Act requests. We just got a whole bunch more in today with more things that the community doesn't know of. So I'm kind of in the habit. I spend about 70 hours a week on this kind of stuff. Um, and yeah, I just keep hoping that, we'll get enough educated people, and we'll get honest people on our city council, and that we can turn things around. So that's why I keep hanging in there. We'll see. This election will be a really important one for the local people in the Coastal Bend area.
Yeah, that's something also that we have found. One of the things when Riot, announced they're building the world's largest Bitcoin mine here, we couldn't understand why no one did their due diligence, why no one wants to talk about it. To this day, it's been 2 years now. To this day, the Corsicana city government has never publicly spoken about the Bitcoin mine in a city council meeting, and they are the main drivers. They're going to be providing wholesale water to them. So, one of the things that one of our goals was to get the people who brought this here out of office. And so, we've got one down and we got a couple more to go, but that that can affect change as well. Like your vote matters, folks, especially those local elections and the midterms and the little one-off elections when people aren't expecting you to show up. That's when your vote really matters. And so staying informed and being involved is like the best. That the opposite is why they've been able to proliferate, because a lot of Texans are checked out, a lot of Texans aren't informed. So this is our best defense.
Yeah, I
What?
definitely agree with that. And besides voting, which is super important, if you're an honest person, with an open mind, consider running for office. Then like the school board, county commissioner, city council, those are the elected officials that have the biggest impact on your lives. So and we're working on that now, just trying to get people to run for office. Very difficult in Texas. A lot of people don't want to run for whatever reasons. But we need more people to run. And then hopefully we'll get a majority of honest, open-minded people, and then we can make changes that will impact the entire world.
Absolutely. Totally. Totally agree. What gives you hope about the future for the Gulf in the Bitcoin mining? Um, are you hopeful?
Well, yeah, I mean, what gives me hope is when, we uncover more information that people don't know about, and we can figure out a way to use it for the better of everybody.
Yeah.
But I think just more people being informed about like Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, scams, industrial district agreements, more people being informed about these tax breaks for data centers and the impacts on our electric rates, or like in your situation, the impact on water rates
Hmm.
that these industries have and how it impacts all of us. But I guess that's what gives me hope is just more people are getting informed about this, and more people are paying attention.
For sure. Yeah. It felt like we were screaming into the void for a really long time. But then when last August, Riot made $31.7 million, they made more from the ERCOT um, ancillary services and Encore selling their deeply discounted energy back to the grid. They made more money that month from not mining Bitcoin than from mining Bitcoin, and that made front page headline news everywhere, except of course where they're building the world's largest Bitcoin mine right here. Thanks for nothing, Corsicana Daily Sun. Um, but that really kind of blew the lid off of this industry. And then when they sued the federal government to keep their energy consumption a secret, I think that raised a lot of people's eyebrows. And then just recently with that hearing and finding out that the Texas grid is just being overwhelmed and overrun by these guys, it it really is opening a lot of eyes and perking up a lot of ears. So I appreciate you telling folks about it, educating the locals. Um, you know, what you're doing is so important and so impactful. And we talk a lot about planting seeds, and so maybe right this moment folks don't get it, but down the road when things become more and more obvious that this is like totally unsustainable, they're going to remember what you said. They're going to remember that presentation you gave. So thank you so much for being on our side.
Yeah, well, thanks for all the work you've been doing. And I think you're really bringing a lot more people into the know of what's really going on, and for all your work that you've done, at the Capitol. I don't get to the Capitol. I don't leave the coastal bend hardly ever at all. I'm just here on the front lines doing whatever I can do. And yeah.
Well, we really appreciate it, and it matters, and it's working. Is there anywhere you'd like to send folks website or any books? Like you said, Web3 is going great. Is a really fun website. Any other things you'd like to plug or promote or tell folks?
Well, I mean, yeah, the couple of books that I really like, The Driverless Finance by Hillary Allen is a really good one. Let Them Eat Crypto is another good one. Popping the Crypto Bubble.
Mhm.
If people read those three books, that should be all they need to know. Um,
Yep.
so, but yeah, and I really like that. There was a professor I used to follow when I was on Twitter, when he was on Twitter from Berkeley. He was really good. Trying to remember his name. You would probably know it. But he,
Nicholas Weaver.
exactly, yeah.
He's not really super anti. He doesn't talk about it that much more. He's real into drones right now.
Oh, okay, yeah. He used to be very much into
Yes.
educating people about the blockchain, what it
Yeah.
really is. It's not new technology, what it's good for, pretty much nothing. How to compare a blockchain to like a database,
Yeah.
so
He had a great lecture called "Why Cryptocurrency Cryptocurrency Should Die by Fire" or something like that. Like
exactly. I saw it on
extremely anti.
YouTube. Yeah,
Yeah,
very, very good one. But yeah, people just need to
totally.
keep following you and keep getting educated. And if you own any cryptocurrency, sell it.
Please.
And if you don't buy any.
Yep, for sure. That's great, great advice to end the show with. John Weber, thank you so much for joining us today. Folks, this was another episode of the Proof of Waste podcast, where we talk about the destructive, exploitative industry of Bitcoin mining. And our guest was John Weber of Corpus Christi, Coastal Bend Sierra Club. Thank you so much, John. Have a fantastic weekend.
You too. Thank you very much.
If anything you saw today makes you want to act, we need your help. Join us. Fill out the form below, and we'll get you onboarded into the National Coalition Against Crypto Mining. Thank you so much for watching.